Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, we've been trying, a few of us, to try to work on a compromise, and I'm not sure we're there totally yet, but I do believe I have an amendment that I'd like to discuss and offer at this point in time.
Representative, you've got the floor. Oh, yeah, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're right.
Thank you, Randy. Make the motion.
I make a motion that we pass out House Bill 2456 favorably as amended. Or favorably. It's not amended yet.
Second?
Second.
Okay, are we back on track? Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the reviser is handing out an amendment. You know, we heard yesterday from Wildlife and Parks, mentoring, they believe that's part of the solution, and I agree with that. There's also a real concern about the cost of the license at $200 because they lose leverage from the feds, as we all heard, and I believe they projected, based upon whatever number of license that they would sell, that the department would lose $1,200 or $12,000 and some odd dollars a year, which over a 10-year period of time is $127,000. Now, I looked at the leverage, and this amendment, what it's all about is trying to increase that a little bit to not have the quite as much financial impact on the department, and hopefully they could maybe use the extra money to try to leverage and get some federal relief. I'm not sure they can, but with that said, Mr. Chairman, I have the amendment in front of you, and basically what it does is increase the fee from $200 to $400 for the license fee. This is for the original bill, which is 0 to 5, I believe, and let me start there, and we can discuss it.
Committee, any questions or discussion? Representative Garber?
Well, I was perfectly fine with it being at 200. I'm not sure what we're hearing from Department of Wildlife and Parks is factual. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm saying maybe we're just not getting all the evidence. So I'm going to continue to stick with the $200, so I'll be opposing this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Due to our good office staff, we need a second on Representative Gardner's amendment. Okay. Thank you, Representative. And now we're continuing our discussion. Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm also going to be opposing this amendment. I think that we've seen clear evidence with 4 other states that they are already under that $400 threshold. And, you know, again, I go back to the fact that we need to try to do whatever we need to do to bolster rural America and hunting and fishing amongst our kids. And by the time you get to be, 16, that ship has sailed. And so I just think this makes sense. We throw money away on stupid stuff, a lot of other stupid stuff. I think this is a gamble I'm willing to take, and so I'll also be opposing this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, at the beginning of this, I would have said yes, that I do agree with the 200. But the more I look at it, you know, time of inflation and things has gone up year after year after year. This is still pretty hot mic. Change and see if this works any better. So that's the reason I guess I'm going to vote in favor of the $400. I still think that if we can still recoup some of our dollars for wildlife parks through fees, to me it's the best instead of SGF. And so therefore I will be voting in favor of this amendment.
Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm going to support the amendment for a couple of reasons. But just to be clear, if somebody can correct me, but it is a totally fee-funded agency, is that correct? And so the funds that they get from the federal government are leveraged by the fees that we collect here in Kansas. So there's no state general fund in this, and there hasn't ever been, I guess. But the amount that we have, did you say $962 is what? Is that the, tell me what that fee is, what does that fee do?
As we were having our gathering in the stairway, that was what the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks suggested this should be.
I thought we had a rate. No, there's a rate for $962. Is it from 16 to 20 or is? It's a lifetime fee for what age group?
For 17 and above.
All adults, basically, 17 and up. Well, so this is like less than half of that. And it's a lifetime thing. They could live to be 100. So I think it's a pretty good deal, and I will support this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although I'm not normally on this committee, legislators do not have a hard time having an opinion about anything, so might as well interject my opinion as well. I belong to several organizations that have lifetime dues arrangements, lifetime memberships. Probably the difference between those organizations and this is that they put the excess in a fund and hold it back and take the interest off of it to pay the annual dues or memberships of those organizations. In this case, you have either $200 or $400 going to an agency that's spent and is not held back. And so it's not like you are funding this for a lifetime. You're just giving them a lifetime membership for a certain amount, and it's spent that year. And because of that, I think it probably doesn't make as good a sense to have a $400 versus a $200. If you were going to keep that back, maybe that $400 would be important, and use the, put the corpus into an interest-bearing account and pull the interest off of it each year to pay for that membership. That's not what happens here. And so, therefore, my opinion is that $200 is probably a good place to be.
Representative Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we heard yesterday the threshold needs to be $400 because at $200, you lose so much of the federal match. That was the problem on the $200 figure. And you're right, the money is spent all in 1 year. So with the $400, I struggle with all this because you're cutting your income off in the future years, and you may really be in trouble. And the last thing you want to do if you're a State Department is come up here and ask for SGF money. I'm struggling on this whole concept, but the 200 from number was certainly not acceptable to wildlife and parks. Thank you.
So just a little information. First of all, sometimes we take our eyes off the event. This license is a $200 license for kids 0 to 5. Nobody even knows when grandma or grandpa or their mom or dad flip that $200 for that little piece of paper, whether Nancy or Johnny will ever hunt or fish. And to get down to the really nits and grits of it, the license that you buy really doesn't, in the real marketing value, buy you much. I mean, Candace is 97% privately owned. They're going to have to place, it's not like Wildlife and Parks has 5 million acres of wonderland to go play with. I think this is kind of a heritage license, a family license, so the goal of this is so when they take a chance, they throw $200, it's like buying a $200 lottery ticket. You may not know whether you got a winner ever. And this is not a moneymaker for Wildlife and Parks, but the point of this is to take a chance, get more kids in the game, and it's just like always. We always try to take our eyes off the prize, whether it's $200 or $400 or $600, $900. It's a piece of paper to let you do something that they don't own for their life, and they may not. So it's, I would oppose the amendment the way it's written. I'd like to get this out clean and see if we can do something later. But this is, other states are trying it. If I've told you before, you can look through research. Resident hunting licenses in this state are on a demand, or like a slipper slide. They've been losing people every year, while out-of-state hunters are going up. So people want to come and hunt here, but the nice thing about this license is for some chance maybe they bought the license when they were little. They didn't want to hunt, but maybe when they were 25 or 30, maybe the light come on, they said, this is pretty cool. They may not even live in Kansas, but this would give them a chance to come home, maybe stay home and work the farm or hang out, but they could come home and hunt and fish, be with their family. I can't see that arguing over $200 on the money that's, they're arguing upstairs in the Senate for $6 billion for a place to go nowhere, we don't know what's going on. $200 is nothing, so we can run your amendment or do what you'd like, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, you've convinced me. I'm going to withdraw my amendment.
Back on the bill.
But I might have another amendment.
Sidney, you'd have to withdraw the second.
It's lost anyway. Thank you. And Second Amendment is just something very, it might be overkill, but I want to know how many of these licenses we're selling. So with that, the reviser has really, the concern was yesterday, we were talking about mentoring. Representative Corbett just said we're going to sell these, or someone's going to purchase it for a youngster 0 to 5. They don't know if they'll ever use it. I'd sort of like to know how many we are selling. So if you look at the amendment, it says that the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks shall report to this committee or its successor on the number of such Kansas Kids lifetime combination hunting and fishing license issued by the Department of Wildlife and Parks. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's my amendment.
Okay.
Move your amendment,
I'll second it, or whatever. There you go.
I thought we had discussion and then. Oh, okay. I move the amendment, Mr. Chairman. I have a second.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
I don't have a problem with this at all. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, it's reasonable. Yeah, sure.
Representative?
It would be nice to have a graph that shows the number of hunting and fishing licenses by age group over the last 15, 20 years, because like you, I think it's just like ball and chain headed to the bottom. And I guess this is kind of a token attempt to try to increase that. And with the amendment, I guess annually we'll be able to measure it and see where it's going. So, yeah, I'll support the amendment.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Thank you, Representative Garber. I always thought there was discussion and then I would move my amendment, but I've already moved it, so.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Nay. The amendment's been passed. Back on the bill. Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was asked by a colleague this morning, does this license that's going to be sold, will it qualify for any identification for anything else and all, for voting or anything like that? Does any of these licenses qualify for official identification?
Not that I know of, but I will tell everybody here that if you want to buy a hunting or fishing license, the only snag might be you have to have a Social Security number to purchase a license. So.
Some identification.
So I wouldn't know why it would. You could, who knows? I mean, in some states you can just probably do anything, but so.
But staff know this?
I don't know whether they would use, what would use for identification for staff. I don't know.
No, okay.
The Secretary of Wildlife and Parks is on WebEx if you want to ask him.
Mr. Secretary, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Do you know if this license, would prove for any identification for anything else?
I've never heard of it being able to be used for that, so I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
On the bill. Any more discussion, anyone? Okay, I guess I'm going to make them, we're going to have,
The motion on the floor is to
As
approve
is.
the bill and then you need
As
to leave it
amended.
as amended.
so the vote will be at the bill as amended. Those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Thank you. So, that passes 2456 out of committee. And now we get some fun stuff. So, let's open up the informational hearing for the Department of Commerce budget. Sheri, are you in the room? I have to go make a phone call. Okay, I'll be right back.
I can go ahead. Okay. Thank you, Chairman Corbett and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Sheri Renfro, Chief Fiscal Officer for the Department of Commerce. Under Secretary Tolan, the department has embraced data-driven decision-making that aligns with the legislature's vision for performance-based budgeting. We are pleased to present our past and present work which supports performance-based budgeting in our organizational culture and operations. You should have a handout there. As the state's lead economic development agency, the department works to empower individuals and help businesses and communities to achieve prosperity in Kansas. We are able to accomplish this through a variety of programs and services that create jobs, attract new investment, provide workforce training, encourage community development, and promote the state as a great place to live and work. These programs or services are housed within Commerce's several divisions, which are listed on your sheet. They are business development, community development, workforce development, international, tourism, and also we have an administration or operations division as well. A number of major developments this past year has better positioned Commerce to power economic growth and community improvements in rural and urban and suburban areas across the state. Most notably, the Business Development Division continued to strengthen in 2021 with nearly $3.8 billion in capital investment announced by private sector businesses. This led to 13,483 new and retained jobs through 321 economic development projects throughout the state. We also worked with the Legislature last year to make improvements and updates to our high performance incentive program, as well as an extension of our angel investor tax credit. And we also made improvements to enhance transparency and accountability of our Star Bond program. We also had a license reciprocity bill to recognize occupational licenses gained in another state. Some other notable accomplishments include the Kansas Tourism returning to Department of Commerce back in July of 2021, and our Office of Rural Prosperity that partnered with the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation to complete a Kansas housing market analysis. And we also had a new Kansas Work website that was launched this past February. Lastly, the department also opened a second round of broadband acceleration grants, funding critical Kansas plans to address broadband gaps statewide. On page 3 of our written testimony, you will have our budget overviews, which allows for all these great accomplishments to occur. You'll also find the total budgets broken down by division for 22 and 23. Also in your packet, you will find the completed performance-based budgeting templates for our programs. We worked with our program managers to compile the data on the templates, and as an agency, we continue to incorporate the performance-based budgeting initiative to work to demonstrate how we are maximizing our allocated funds to obtain strong, effective results for each of our programs. There's quite a few pages, there's 40 of them, but I won't go through all of those. I'll just highlight a few of our programs. In the Business Development Division on page 10, a good example is our KIT-KER, or Kansas Industrial Training and Kansas Industrial Retraining programs, which are funded through EDIF, not State General Fund. These programs are designed to assist businesses with training new and existing employees. The outcomes and outputs measured that we used include total new net job trainees, total existing job trainees, total return on investment for program dollars invested, return on investment for state and local tax revenue for program dollars invested, total award amount, number of new projects, and total dollar amount application fees. On page 32, I'll highlight the Kansas Creative Arts Industry Commission, which is within our Community Development Division. KCAIC's focus is to offer programs and services to support cultural programming across Kansas and to enhance the role that the arts play in all levels of education, community service, workforce development, and the quality of life in the state. This program is supported by both non-state general funds and federal funds. There's also a match component to the federal grant that KCAIC receives. And there's a number of measures that we used for this template. On page 20, under Workforce Services Division, I'll highlight the Registered Apprenticeship Program, which is supported by federal funds. And this program incorporates classroom studies through on-the-job training supervised by a skilled employee. It has the following outcome and output measures, such as number of active apprentices, number of new apprentices, number of active programs, and number of new programs. Within the International Division, there's a program called the Kansas International Trade Assistance Program, or KITSAP. KITSAP allows Kansas companies with introductions to foreign markets through participation in international trade shows. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the participation in this program was greatly limited last year, so there is a little downturn on that. The measures that we Included are number of approved applications, total value of estimated sales for companies assisted by the program, number of new international sales agents, total of dollar amount approved KITSAP agreements, number of KITSAP applications received, and the percentage of applications approved. And lastly, on page 40, I'll highlight Kansas tourism, which has moved back to Department of Commerce with ERO 48. As you know, tourism is an economic development driver for the state. Every new visitor, every new resident is a visitor first, and each new business investment also begins with a visit to the state. The outcome and output measures that we used are number of visitors to Kansas, amount of statewide transient guest tax, visitor spending in the state, and the number of registered agritourism businesses. There are details for several other programs in our written testimony, and you also have all of our completed templates for the programs in your packet. We also look forward to presenting our budget in greater detail soon. Thank you for allowing me to share a few highlights on performance-based budgeting.
Committee, any questions? Representative?
Thank you, ma'am, for your testimony. A couple questions, and just to provide some clarity for me to help understand. The Kansas Bioscience Authority, does that have anything to do with MBAF, or what is the Bioscience Authority?
Several years ago, there was a bioscience program, and currently, we no longer have the program. We are just running the building. We still own that building. We do have several tenants in the building, and that's mainly for the operations. We also do have grant commitments that are from the KBA program that we are still paying out. Those are grant commitments that were long-term.
So that's not really doing a huge function right now. The Bioscience Authority is not function. Okay. Another, I guess, comment maybe would be on page 5 when you talk about the Office of Rural Prosperity. So as someone who lives in rural America, and I look through these, you know, one of the things I guess I would just like to see are agriculture-specific programs. We look at dollars invested in housing programs. Well, we're losing population in rural America, so that seems to be interesting. I don't know why we need a lot more housing programs out there. Creation of land banks in rural communities, I can get on board with that. Broadband expansion, I can get on board with that. Healthcare, wellness, that's fine. I think I would like to maybe put a bug in your ear. You know, if you want to strengthen rural prosperity in rural America, maybe some programs like, you know, where's the infrastructure for small packing plants, or agriculture-specific programs that actually deal with rural America, the industry that built those areas out there. So anyway, thanks for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. And I sit on the Committee for Rural Prosperity, and I think some of the questions that were asked right there, we had presentations this last week on housing and things like that. So these are great numbers. I guess my question is, going forward, bar's been set pretty high. You think we can make these numbers look this good in the years ahead?
Oh, I definitely think so. We've continued to grow with economic development and prospering in our rural communities, so I think we will achieve that.
Well, good job. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? I have a question. This will be on page 40. And I'm looking under the performance measures. Visitors to Kansas. Is there something we can do to get more visitors through this state? Can you, because I mean, we're set right in the middle. You think we could get a lot of people to stay here for a day? And does the tourism need more money to make this happen?
We could always use more money. Actually, if you would not mind, I have Bridget Job. She's our tourism director. She could provide some more information regarding your question if she may come up.
Thank you. You know I love that question, Representative.
I can see that smile clear through the
You
mask.
could, even with my mask on. Yeah. I'm Bridget Job. I am the Director of Tourism with Kansas Tourism with the Department of Commerce. And Representative Corbett actually sits on our Governor's Council for Travel and Tourism. And it's one of the things that we do talk about. We do have an amazing state in Kansas. And travel trends that we are seeing right now really are great opportunities for us. We have the wide open spaces, we have the byways, we have the agritourism businesses, we have the things that travelers are looking for. But in tourism, you can't just build it and they will come. You have to market, and it costs money to market. We are one of the lowest funded state tourism offices in the U.S. We typically fall right around 46th, 48th in the lowest funded. And so we are always marketing and telling people about what a wonderful state this is to come and visit, but we're doing so a little bit with one hand tied behind our back. And so, yes, is there need for more dollars? There is. The dollars we have, we spend very responsibly. Our numbers are fantastic. If you look at some of the things that we're doing with ks.gov and some of our marketing, we've just recently been able to launch a brand new website. We have award-winning publications. We have now been able to hire a full-time agritourism manager. We are doing things that are great, and we're very responsible with the dollars, but it takes money to tell people about how wonderful Kansas is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bridget, do we have any numbers yet that would reflect how many people have gone to, say, Little Jerusalem since we reopened?
Sure, we do, and I can share some of those numbers. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Feeling, you have a feeling without numbers? I mean,
Yeah, I can get that number from our state parks, and they would be able to share that much more accurately than I can. I can tell you that we know our numbers have increased, and our state parks have had some banner years during the pandemic. And I can share some of that data with you. I will tell you one of the things that we have invested in just recently is being able to track where our visitors are coming from and where they are going within Kansas using cell phone data. And it is a wonderful tool for us to have. And when we make our marketing decisions, I look at who is coming, what are they doing when they are here? Are they going, if they're going to this attraction, are they also going to this attraction over here? So what are the co-marketing things that I can do? So it's an amazing ability for us to be able to learn this, and we're really just learning this technology. But
they hit Kansas City heading west, we're going to do pop-up ads about all our parks along the way.
that is exactly where I'm wanting to go.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, numbers are nice,
Right.
but I wanted the feeling that you were getting and your perception. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bridget, thanks. I think, are all very much interested in tourism. And I'll get into the budget questions when we have the budget, because it appears to me we're going down in 23 by $100,000. But I guess I have a comment, Mr. Chairman. I think Wildlife and Parks used to have tourism, if I remember correctly, and we moved that by executive order last year.
It was effective July 1.
Effective July 1, and I supported that, and I think the future is bright with tourism associated in the Commerce Department. So I would just, good luck. I know we'll see these numbers escalate in the years in front of us. So good luck to that.
Thank you.
Following up on Representative Carlin's question, not only could you do your attractions, but would that menu be open for private business to buy a slot to eat at Jim's Diner, or something like you're 20 miles from, you know what I'm saying? Is there any way for private business to, if that was ever set up?
Are you checking the research that I,
Well,
or
like on
that,
like on the cell phone.
on the cell phone data? Yeah. There's probably ways. I will tell you it's not inexpensive. And so we try to look at it the best way we can. I am able to break it down by region, and we are breaking it down even farther by that. I think the most important thing is probably for us to be able to share that information with you. And it's on our website. You can look at it and we can share that. So I'd love to have more conversations about that if there's a way.
Maybe when you come back so that the committee can see just exactly in dollars and cents from the state that spends the most to the state that spends the least, just kind of give a snapshot of where we're at. So
Definitely do that.
any other questions for Bridget? Thank you. Does anybody else care to speak? Okay. Okay, thank you. So, I know it. So if there's not any other questions, this will close the hearing on the Department of Commerce for today. And Victoria, do you have something you need to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I promise not to take too much of the committee's time, but you found on your desk when you came in a document that looks like this. It says Department of Agriculture at the top. The first thing I want to emphasize is that it's just a sample document. So this year, Legislative Research redid what our budget analysis looks like. So you'll remember that we are starting budget hearings next week. And KLRD analysts, including me, will come up here and present a document like this for each of the agencies that you'll hear. But again, we made it look a little bit different this year. So I just wanted to walk you through this document so that you have an idea of what you're looking at when we start budget hearings next week. But again, this is just a sample document. The numbers are made up. Yes, it looks like this.
2021.
Yeah.
2021 data.
Well, no, the numbers are completely made up. It's not even 2021 data. So yeah, it is, yeah, completely made up. So I just want to emphasize that before we get started. So as a reminder, a budget hearing that you'll start next week starts with a KLRD analyst presenting a document just like this. And then the agency will present, and then you as a committee will make recommendations for an agency's budget. Maybe you want to add money, maybe you want to reallocate money, maybe you want to tell the agency you think they're doing a really great job. All of these things can fall under recommendations that you can make as part of a budget hearing. Okay, so looking at that Department of Agriculture document in front of you, that first table breaks out an agency's budget by operating and capital improvements. So as a reminder, capital improvements are expenditures an agency makes to construct or repair or update a building that they own. So if an agency owns their own building, they will have capital improvements. So that's just that first table. The next couple of pages are just summary information, including the agency's request and the governor's recommendation. Most of the time, analysts will skip over this page because it is summary information, and it's the same information is in greater detail later on. So we'll turn a couple of pages to page 4. On page 4, you'll see a table at the top of the page. It breaks down by category of expenditure, so that includes salaries and wages, contractual services, commodities, and capital outlay. This document is trying to move a little bit away from describing the budget in those terms. So KLRD wanted to look at the budget in a bigger picture. So rather than just saying an agency is spending $1 million more on salaries and wages, we're going to talk about why they're spending that money or why they are redoing their computer system and things like that. So we're trying to look at it like a project rather than just a line item, $100 for something without the explanation. But in case you're interested, that page 4 still has those categories of expenditure. On pages 4 and 5, you'll see fund analysis. So if an agency has state general fund, there will be one for state general fund showing historic state general fund expenditures. Page 5 has a couple of fee funds that you might see for an agency, including their ending balance for that fee fund. Moving on to page 6. Page 6 is where we really get into the budget and analysis for the current year. So this page has a line-by-line description of large changes in an agency's budget. So we start with the approved, so the current year, the year that we are currently in this case it's fiscal year 2022, has an approved amount that the legislature allocated for this year. Also described in that table is the agency's revised estimate. So you can consider that agency request an ideal scenario of what an agency would not only need to maintain agency operations, but also what they would want to grow a program, add a program, et cetera. So that's that agency's revised estimate. And then on page 7, at the bottom, page 7 starts the governor's recommendation. So you'll remember that the core of our analysis is generally comparing the agency's revised estimate or the agency's request to what the governor recommended. So we're comparing those two things for each of the budget years. Moving on to page 8. Or I'm sorry, page 9. I apologize. Page 9. Page 9 is a new table that we added. House appropriations especially would often ask what is causing the change between what an agency spent the year before and what an agency is requesting to spend this year. So we added this page to give that explanation since it was just a question that we often received. So you'll see that in each of our budget analyses. On page 10. Page 10 is just like the analysis for the current year, but it's for the following budget year. So the same idea, a table with a line-by-line description of large changes in an agency's budget. So any item, numbered item that you see in the table has a description below that. Moving on to page 12. Pages 12 and 13, and the gray boxes are space for an analyst to further explain what might be going on with the agency's budget. So this example includes reduced resources, but more often for this year, you'll see an explanation of an agency's supplementals and enhancements. So as a reminder, a supplemental or an enhancement is an expenditure that the agency has requested to expand a program, add a new program, something additional expenditures other than the bare basics to maintain agency operations. That's a supplemental or an enhancement, and you'll see it in a gray box just like this. I'll move on to page 14. Page 14 and the pages after page 14 describe the budget broken down by program. So you heard the Department of Commerce mention several of their programs, and this document breaks down the budget by program. Each program includes performance measures. So just like you just heard Department of Commerce, you heard Division of Environment last week and Department of Agriculture describe their performance measures. Again, those are submitted by the agency, and we have included them in this document. And finally, I'll move to the very back page of the document. On that very back page is capital improvements. So I mentioned that means constructing or work on a building that an agency might own. And if an agency has capital improvements, it's always the very last thing in a document. And Mr. Chairman, I will stand for questions on the new budget analysis format. Again, I just wanted you all to be able to see it before we started budget hearings next week.
Committee, any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you, Victoria. You're just a smart little cookie. I just appreciate you always explaining all of this stuff, knowing that it's very overwhelming.
And Mr. Chairman, I have one more document, if there's no questions. There was a single sheet of paper put in front of you. So as I mentioned, this committee will make recommendations for each budget. What happens to those recommendations afterwards? The KLRD analyst will put them into what we call a subcommittee report. That subcommittee report will be sent to all of you for your approval. And by approval, we don't mean that you agree with every recommendation. It just means that you agree that the budget is ready to move on to the next step in the process, which in this case is to be heard by House Appropriations. So we're doing it by email this year. So we'll email you those recommendations in the subcommittee report. You can email us that you don't agree that the budget is ready to move on. If you don't answer, we'll take that as a yes, that you do agree that it's ready. And so, yeah, just wanted to point out that you'll receive those by email. You'll have a time window in which you can reply to us. And it's always an option for you to not agree to that the recommendations are ready. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, if there's any questions on that.
Great job, Victoria. Committee, any representative?
What I'm hearing, and I may be wrong, is we're not going to vote it out except by email?
Oh, no, you do vote it out in committee. It's just we want to make sure that our understanding of the recommendation is correct. So it's just you reviewing what you voted on. So we just want to make sure that we get that correct because, you know, things are usually oral in committee. So we just want to make sure we write it up correctly.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think, just to clarify a little bit, when you said it doesn't mean you agree, what you really mean is when we sign that document, it says this happened in committee. It doesn't say I voted for it. It says this is what the committee did. So, yeah, that's almost the same thing as you said. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Last chance so we can let Victoria go on with her day. So, Victoria, are you finished?
I am.
Committee, anything else before we?
You might do this one we're going to do next.
Hang on.
Very bogus.
Yeah,
Agenda.
I'm not sure what I have here.
I might just
I mean, if you want to add something.
Is that Monday? So, yeah, so Monday's credit union and what, Josh? State banking, and it just starts there, and the fund continues pretty heavy for the next 3 weeks. So, so credit union and banking on Monday, bank commission on Monday, and then as you've been given, or Josh can send it out again, you can kind of see the budgets we're going to work and when, and Monday through Thursday, isn't it? We're trying to get, we've spread, what it looks like we'd agreed to do was, instead of trying to do too much at one day, little budget, like if they're smaller, we try to knock out two. If they're big, we try to give them the whole, so we have more time to look. So it's a little bit longer, but it gives you more time to kind of chew over what we're seeing. So good. We're adjourned.